So I read over your consultation. Seems like.
I have some more notes too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just like wrote everything down.
Yeah. That's great.
So I've had her for about a year. I rescued her from a live rescue.
Okay.
And I think like the main problem is the barking and the lunging.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not consistent. Like sometimes she's okay, sometimes she's just not having someone.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes she kind of seems to do it for like no real reason either. Like she'll just kind of seem to change her mind, if that makes sense. Like I think I've gotten very good at recognizing when she's still super anxious around new people.
Mm-hmm.
But even to people who have like had dogs, they don't see it, you know?
Sure.
So it's bad with men.
Mm-hmm.
Women, she's done it like once or twice, but usually like it's like one quick reaction and then she's like, never mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like she did it once to my sister because my sister like lifted her leg above her head. Like it was
over her head.
No, like kind of, I mean, she was standing near her.
Sure.
And she had, you know, she was like stretching. She was basically just messing around, and Lucy barked and jumped at her.
Sure.
And she sat down, and then Lucy sniffed her out and was like, never mind. And now like hasn't had an issue with my sister's son.
Okay.
And then like with my dad, my brother, my sister's boyfriend, one of my very good male friends,
Mm-hmm.
she seemed to have gotten used to them and no longer really reacts to them.
Mm-hmm.
Though like sometimes she does this thing when like new people or newer people to her walk into the home, she runs like barking at them.
Mm-hmm.
And then she normally will hold up and kind of sniff them out and then be like, never mind, and like walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes for some people, she's like, no way in hell, and barks and jumps. And the real reason kind of why I ended up here is because she jumped at one of my friends and hit him in the head and
I saw that concussion.
And gave him a concussion.
Sure.
She also has like jumped and barked at my grandma and knocked her over. So that's like my biggest concern.
Mm-hmm.
She's never bitten anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And she definitely could have.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably my biggest concern. But my other one is she has pretty, like, in my mind, severe separation anxiety.
Okay.
So, like, when I leave the house, she'll bark for at least 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
She, like, hoards my clothes. She will get in the trash. She doesn't destroy anything.
Mm-hmm.
She usually won't, like, pee or like, defecate.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened once or twice, but it's not consistent.
Okay. Like once or twice in the year that you've had her?
Yep. And like she will, like she follows me around a lot. So like even if I go to the bathroom, sometimes she'll try and like get in there.
Okay.
If I like go into my room and close the door, at certain times she'll try and get in. At night she generally leaves it alone because she's probably already asleep on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And then like smaller stuff, she pulls a lot on walks.
Sure.
And with other dogs, this is something I don't really get.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're out on walks, she'll like go into like a down position
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of wait on a dog to approach her, and then she'll kind of jump up, maybe bark, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
But and I know sometimes that's like a dog trying to engage in play, but I just can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I obviously don't let her get close to other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But I boarded her at Pooch Hotel, and when I boarded her, they put her in like the large dog play group, and she's totally fine. Like, never had an issue, never hurt another dog.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But you yourself don't socialize her?
No, because I'm afraid to be honest.
Yeah.
And then also like I tried another like training group.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a consultation with her outside, and they brought out, and I kind of explained this like weird phenomena with her with me and other dogs and her with other dogs alone.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought out like their dog that they bring out for all of the dogs to kind of see.
Mm-hmm.
And she did her like little down position,
Mm-hmm.
and I was instructed, like, don't say anything, don't whatever, just,
Correct.
you know, stand there. But it had been kind of a long time, and I knew, like, I saw the hair on the back of her was up, and I was just nervous, so I, like, said to the guy, like, hey, like, her hair's up. And then she kind of, like, tried to go up to the other dog, and it seemed kind of aggressive, but, you know, part of me thinks, like, if she was in group play, it probably would have been fine. Like, I feel like I'm kind of a problem sometimes. I don't know how true that is or not.
Sure, I'll explain that stuff too.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's it. I don't know if you want this. I, like, wrote down.
Oh, it's good.
Okay. You probably have heard all of this 500 times.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think, like, the thing that I'm most concerned about her with is, like, the reactivity and, like, the jumping and kind of barking at people. The other stuff, like, I would love to help out with her, like, kind of try and get her separation anxiety down. And I'd love to be able to, like, you know, let her sniff out other dogs and not be worried about it. But to me, like, my biggest thing that I really need help with is the barking, the lunging, and, like, kind of the reactivity.
Okay. Just a couple of questions. When she barked and she knocked your grandma down, correct? What had your grandma done prior to
Nothing.
what? Your grandma's just there.
Yeah, so my grandma has dementia, and
Okay.
like she's 85, so she kind of like walks kind of heavy,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sure she probably kind of looked Lucy in the eye. And to be completely honest, she's definitely afraid of her, just because she's a big dog and a pit bull. But she didn't really do anything. We just had kind of rounded a blind corner, and she was there. And that's she, you know, barked, jumped. My grandma fell over. I went to my grandma. She kind of lingered, but she didn't like keep barking or keep going at her. But yeah, that was that.
Grandma okay?
Yeah, she was okay. Her hip hurt for like a day or two, but
Okay.
yeah, Tylenol. Yeah. So.
With your friend that she gave the concussion to, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so he came in. She was like, I have a roommate, so she was like not having it. This is the first time she met him. So she kind of like, my roommate kind of had her by the leash, and we had him like feed her treats and like go try and sit down. And, you know, she seemed to kind of calm down a bit, and he was still kind of like feeding her treats, and he like bent over a little bit, and then she barked and launched her, you know, kind of launched herself at him and headbutted him. Gave him like a bloody nose and a concussion.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That was a very well placed headbutt.
Yeah.
Depending on
Like,
who you ask.
right. Like, I mean, I think she was like obviously trying to hit him, and like she was not happy with him. I don't think she, you know, knows what a headbutt.
Yeah, no,
do.
she that wasn't intentional. It just happened.
Yeah.
You have a nervous dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where all this is coming from.
Yeah.
So fear, anxiety, nervousness look similar because they're insecure behaviors.
Right.
Anxiety tends to pace a lot.
Yeah.
Fear will bark but keep away,
Okay.
and they're like usually kind of relentless, like they don't shut up.
Yeah.
And then nervousness triggers when they're caught off guard.
Okay.
So your grandma, you said you turned the corner.
Yeah.
When your sister lifted her leg up,
Right.
that was just kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
For your friend that got the concussion, you know, he's giving treats and then just leaned in.
Right.
And he, you know, if this is our head and this is his head, and he came in like this, it creates what we call pressure.
Okay.
Because it's very confrontational.
Oh yeah.
I mean, imagine if like I got up and put my face in front of you like this,
Right,
You'd be
right.
like, oh my God, dude, right?
Yeah.
That's how a dog feels. So when that happened and she registers, you know,
Right.
she meant to back him off, but because
Right.
he was so close,
Perfect
he didn't get a
angle,
chance,
yeah.
you know, to headbutt him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all the stuff that you're telling me is all nervous dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not anything out of the ordinary. In terms of her personality type, all those things make complete sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to the, you know, reactivity or like the stalking or whatever, you know, some dogs can stalk to kill and some dogs can stalk to play.
Right.
Right? And the way she is with you, yes, dogs can behave differently with their owners because you give her something to protect.
Right.
Okay? So I'm not saying she's doing that to be aggressive,
Right.
but you're technically correct when you said, you know, like you said, I'm the problem, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that you're the problem because, you know,
Like the
not
way it's
wanting
been
to do
displayed
anything,
to
right?
me is like she's resource guarding me. Like I'm the one who feeds her, like I'm the one who
Correct.
takes care of her. And
So you empower her,
right.
you know. So it's kind of like if you have a kid, you would feel inclined to protect the child if
right.
something happened, right? So that's how dogs feel, because dogs are very primal.
Yeah.
She doesn't, like, technically in our mind, we're like, oh, like we bought the dog, we pay for everything, we own the dog.
Yeah.
Not in their world, because they're not completely, you know, they're not aware of these things.
Right.
So, when it comes to that's why Pooch Hotel can socialize her, and you would, if there were going to be problems, you would have a problem, right? It's super common.
Yeah.
And the owner goes like, my dog goes to daycare every day, super social, but then with me, he's like a killer.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, because the dog has protected you. You know, you give it something to claim and all that stuff.
Okay.
So actually, I just did a consultation over the weekend, and the lady, very similar thing, you know, with her dog. But her dog, I had extended my legs out, and within seconds, he came over and towered over my legs.
Okay.
And then I retracted my legs and he walked off. And then like 10 minutes later, I brought it up to her. I was like, you have a very assertive dog.
Yeah.
He just claims immediately. And I was like, look, and I put my legs out right away. And I told her, like, he's doing this. And she's like, oh, you know what? Like, he's been doing this to me this whole time.
Yeah.
I thought it was affectionate. And I said, no, he's claiming you. And he's saying you're my human.
Yeah.
So now when he sees dogs around you, he's saying back off and he's being protective, right? Because her friend took the dog and had no problem with them.
Yeah.
So she's like, how does this work? I'm like, that's how that works.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, if I cough, I just ate my mouth.
It's okay, yeah.
So, all that stuff is nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay.
When it comes to socializing a dog, there's the thought process is, you know, dogs should love everyone and everything, and that's not true.
Right.
You know, I don't love or like everyone that I meet.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure not everybody loves or likes me when they meet me.
Sure.
But as humans, you know, like, I'm not like, you know, yelling at people.
Right.
You know, and if somebody stopped to ask me a question, I may answer it or I may not answer it.
Right.
But that doesn't make me antisocial. It's just I didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
So for dogs though, it's kind of an unrealistic expectation. You know, that everybody thinks dogs are happy-go-lucky creatures, and if that's not the case, you did something wrong.
Right.
And I go, nope. A lot of it is genetics, and I've learned that over the years. And I used to be one of those trainers that was like, oh, it's not the dog, it's the human, right?
Yeah.
And over 10 years, I've changed that thought process. I'm like, no, sometimes actually it's just the dog and bad genetics and this and that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to socializing, I wouldn't worry about getting her to, you know, meet a random dog.
Yeah.
But like, let's say your friend's dog or a relative's dog.
Right.
You know, like that's realistic because that's a dog she would see repeatedly.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And I worked with plenty of clients to show them how to socialize their dog in a style that.
And that's really what I want. Like, I don't need to take her to the dog park. Like, you know, it's not that. It's more just like, you know, when I go home for the holidays or whatever, my aunt has a dog. Like, I would like her to not be afraid to have her be around the dog. Or,
Correct.
And you know, my uncles have, basically everyone in my family has a dog.
Sure. So, yeah. So, and all that's realistic because you would see those dogs on a repeated basis.
Right.
But a dog brought off the street that, you know, just wants to say hi because their dog is super friendly, like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Even with my dogs, and my dogs are social dogs, so I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, people are like, oh, my dog's friendly,
yeah.
And I remember I was in a training session in the South Loop, and I'm working with my client, and like, these two people met right here, and they're like, oh, one of my, like, my dog is friendly, mine too, right? And they got in a fight.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're like, oh my God, I've never seen that happen, like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure they hadn't.
Yeah.
But they assumed because they saw their dog friendly all the time that it would never get aggressive. I'm like, any dog, just like human. I look at aggression and anger, kind of like the same thing.
Okay.
You know, so someone who says like I never get angry, I'd be like, that's BS. Like, you get angry at some point in life, right?
Yeah.
So for dogs, I don't understand why people think that a dog should never become aggressive, or never could.
Right.
You know, it just depends on the context.
Right.
So yeah, socializing her with other dogs that are, you know, that she would see again and that we could have control over because it's like, hey, I'm going to show you what to do, and we're going to do this together, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You have a much higher chance.
Okay.
Plus, you know, she's social at the daycare. Like, there is a social aspect to her. It's just, you know, you know, just your own anxieties and kind of like.
I'm just not comfortable. Like, I don't want her, you know, to hurt anyone else's dog or whatever.
Correct.
It's like, I'm just not going to take this risk because I don't really know how she's going to react.
Correct. So, so I'm not worried about the separation anxiety stuff because you said she barks for about 5 minutes, right, and she stops.
Usually.
Usually, okay.
Sometimes she doesn't.
Mhm.
I have pretty good neighbors, and so, you know, if she goes for longer than like 5 minutes, they normally kind of let me know.
Mhm.
That probably happens like, since I've had her, that's probably happened like 10 times.
Okay, in a year? Once a
Yeah.
month on average?
Yeah,
Okay, so I don't think she has separation anxiety.
okay,
Because if she did, you'd be like, they're gonna kick me out.
okay,
Okay, it's bad, like it doesn't stop.
yeah.
And,
Even like the hoarding of my clothes,
yeah, I mean like my dog, on occasion, like I'll come home and like my chihuahua will like,
she does it
have an
every
issue,
time though.
you know? Your scent, you know,
Yeah.
like I don't have anything, like separation anxiety for me is like, you know, barking nonstop, trying to escape the house, chewing up doorknobs, breaking
Okay.
out of kennels.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, so when I fostered her, she did that.
Mhm.
They gave me a crate for her,
Mhm.
and she broke out of it twice.
Mhm.
So I just stopped putting her in there because I was worried she was gonna hurt herself.
Mhm.
And she didn't destroy my apartment. Like she, you know, pulls my clothes out of my laundry basket
Sure.
and into the living room. But that's really like the extent of the damage she does.
Sure. So in the beginning, when we get a dog, because like she went from, I'm assuming a previous home or something, or like.
Yeah, so she was surrendered to Chicago Animal Control. She's 5, they think,
Mhm.
and they don't really have any information on what her life like was before. When I got her, she was pretty thin. They claim the person who like surrendered her claimed she lived with kids.
Okay. Yeah, because what
that's all I
happens is like, let's say, for example, she had a stable family for X amount of time.
Yeah,
And then they move. And they surrender them to Humane Society.
Right.
And then, did you get it from Humane Society or rescue?
I got her from a rescue,
Okay.
but she never like, she was surrendered to the Humane Society and taken to the rescue that day.
Okay, cool. So she didn't really spend the time.
Yeah,
So she goes from home, Humane Society, even though it was brief, to rescue to you, right? And there's so many changes in a short time that stress levels are up.
right,
And she's in a, like imagine like someone just took you home and locked you in a room,
right,
right? You're gonna be panicked.
yeah,
So those, whenever something happens in that time frame, I don't hold it against the dog,
okay,
because stress levels are up,
right,
right? I go, yeah, that's, I mean, that's what I would expect, that sounds normal.
yeah,
Now, if you were to tell me, Jesse, every time I've created her since I've gotten her and I've had her for a year and every day she breaks out the kennel, then I go, that's a problem,
okay,
right? Is after that because it takes dogs typically 2 to 4 weeks to find their place within the home,
okay,
and then like a year to get used to the routine,
okay,
right? So like let's say you know, if it wasn't for COVID, you work 9 to 5 and you left
Yeah.
9 to 5, right? Is at some point in the beginning she'd be stressed, but then
Yeah.
she's like, oh, you know, you leave at 9, you come back at 5. Like that's the routine now.
Well, it's
Like,
kind
okay.
of funny because that was my routine, and like even now, she tends to not bark
Mhm.
when I leave like early in the morning to go somewhere.
Sure.
Because I think she's like, oh yeah, you used to do this, like you'll
Yeah,
come
it's not
back.
like the ordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes sense. And plus with COVID, and if you're working from home, that's obviously created some more attachment with dogs.
Right, yeah.
So from what I'm seeing here, or what you've explained to me, and just like my experiences with dogs with separation anxiety, if it is, it's like super low level.
Okay,
Okay. Which is good because it's easier to work with.
yeah,
Because I've had dogs that like chew up doors, and
Right.
chew up doorknobs, and like break teeth to bust out of the kennels, and they tear up their noses and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I had a dog chew up its tail. Yeah. So that just kind of gives you the scope of what separation
Yeah.
anxiety could be. Because barking for 5 minutes, you know, especially like with puppies and stuff, is pretty standard.
okay,
And then 10 times in a year, like I'm like, that's not too bad,
okay.
you know? And then also, I think, is there anything triggering it? Like, is she hearing noises outside, stuff like that?
Probably, but I
Sure.
don't really know. I live on a very busy street corner right now.
Okay.
And she does, like, she likes looking out the window and she will bark at dogs.
Mhm.
What's going on?
She's just getting anxious.
So she will, this is coming. Yeah, hi. Yeah, so she'll bark at like other dogs sometimes and whatnot. So I do
From
think
the inside.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do think like that definitely triggers her sometimes.
Uh-huh.
But it is like she watches me, like she will stand there and stare me down as I leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I close the door and lock it, because she knows if I don't lock it, I'm coming right back.
Mm-hmm.
Then she'll start barking, she runs to the window and like watches me leave.
Sure.
So,
yeah, the barking out the window stuff and dogs and everything, normal dog behavior.
Okay.
We can stop it if you don't like it, you know?
yeah, I'm like a little nervous about it because I'm moving apartments now, so I just like don't know what my new neighbors are gonna be like. My current neighbors, like one has a dog, one, the other.
Oh, like they're complaining.
Right, the other ones grew up with dogs, like they're like, it's fine, it's not a big deal. But
Sure.
I just don't know with my new apartment, I don't know who my neighbors are, so.
Okay. In terms of like goals and like if you could have what you wanted with your dog and everything, like what does that look like?
I'd like to like be able to have people over and not
Okay.
have her like run and bark at them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's something like, okay, Lucy, like you're gonna go, sit in your corner while like someone is here,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. I don't want to feel like I'm maybe putting someone at risk being hurt by her when
Mm-hmm.
they're coming over my house.
Sure.
And I don't want to feel like I have to watch her the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they get up to go to the bathroom, I don't want to feel like I have to like
Worry about this.
worry if she's gonna react to them standing up and going to the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's classic nervousness.
Yeah.
When like everything's fine and someone gets up, which is random.
And that's like and with men, like she's, they come in, they sit down, she's like, okay, you're fine. They stand up to like go to the kitchen or like come back from going to the bathroom, and then she's like, wait, what the hell,
Yeah, no, that's like classic nervous dog.
Okay.
What else?
I mean, that's the main thing, and then like was or not even the separation anxiety. I guess like I'd like to be able to kind of handle her on walks better because she does pull a lot.
Just the obedience aspect of stuff.
Yeah, and like with like the laying down and in front of other dogs, it's hard to kind of like get her attention away from them and kind of like keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then I mean those are really like the two big things. I guess I would like her to not bark when I leave the house.
Okay.
So yeah.
In terms of like what can be done and everything, is all this stuff is fairly easy.
Okay.
Okay. Easy because of how I train and the methods I use.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of like how far you're willing to go, right? In terms of, because it's like emotional work.
Yeah.
Some people, because it's your dog, and then people are always like, oh, I don't like if my dog yelps or whatever.
Right.
But a lot of stuff is just correcting behaviors.
Okay.
The nervousness is one thing, like she's technically not doing anything bad,
Right.
so to speak, right? She's just going, I'm nervous, and you move too quickly, bark apart.
Right.
Don't do that, right? So it's not coming from a bad place. But like, let's say barking out the window when you're home and stuff, that is simple as just like, don't do that. Okay?
Yeah, and like at home now, if she barks out the window, I like make her come sit on her bed, and she responds to that pretty well. And I'm not as worried about that with the place that I'm moving because we're like off the street, so I don't even think she's gonna have that much stimuli to bark at anyway.
Sure. So the way I go about like addressing this case is, I'm assuming you did research, you know how we train and the methods we use. Okay?
Yeah.
So we use e-collar and prong collar.
Yeah.
Prong collar really comes up every now and then. It's more so incorporated
Okay.
as opposed to like a approach that I use.
Okay.
The main tool I use is e-collar.
Okay.
And all my puppies over 6 months are trained on e-collar.
Okay.
So any dog that walks out of here that we've trained is on e-collar.
Okay.
And if you do research on e-collars, you'll hear like all sorts of stuff from like you're shocking your dog to like you're lazy, you don't want to build a better relationship with your dog, to this and that. And it's all a bunch of nonsense. Okay. It's just a bunch of people that are trying to deter other people from using these tools because of an agenda. And the reason why I do e-collar is, I started as positive only.
Okay.
And I know the spectrum of dog training.
Right.
So I've done clicker, food only, and I used to be like, oh my God, don't put a prong collar on your dog. Oh my God, you're putting an e-collar, you're terrible. I used to be that crowd.
Yeah.
But then when I became a trainer, I started working with clients with your issues, with their dog.
Yeah.
And I found out that food has a super low ceiling in terms of what it can do.
Yeah.
So I started to, I'm an open-minded person, so I started doing research and watching other trainers, learning other tools. Then I graduated from food to slip chain and prong collar. That was a great jump in my success.
Yeah.
And then then I was like, but I had dogs that I still couldn't, override. I couldn't to like turn around. Then I started e-collar, and I'm like, okay, like now I have everything. And the reason why we do e-collar is one, it allows us to talk to the dog in their language at the press of a button. Okay. So e-collar is nice because we're very button savvy now.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's like typing your phone,
Right.
press the button, start your car. Everything's a button.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier for the person to understand. And the way it transfers to the dog is it's a physical muscle contraction.
Okay.
Now dogs aren't meant to have their muscles contracted, but when layered correctly, the dog learns to interpret it as like a sign, like a method of communication.
Okay.
So I tell people it's a bite on the button, because that's how dogs communicate. They bite each other.
Right.
They nip and bite and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're physical animals.
Right.
And so because the e-collar is a physical thing that they feel, they can, when taught correctly, they respond to it, right?
Okay.
So in terms of what an e-collar is it's a miniaturized TENS unit. Are you familiar with e-stim or TENS therapy? Have you ever been to a chiropractor or a physical therapist?
Yeah.
Have you ever had the machine that they put on your muscles to move your muscles?
No.
No? So at a chiropractor office or a physical therapist office, there's this thing called an e-stim or TENS unit.
Okay.
And they put like little circles on the muscles to stimulate the muscles, to either break up scar tissue, to alleviate back pain is like the most common thing that they use it for. They use a lot in sports rehabilitation therapy.
Okay.
You can even go to Walgreens now and you go in the back section and you'll see it's called a TENS unit.
Okay.
It's short for something, I forget what it stands for.
Yeah.
So it's electric, but not electricity is what I tell people.
Okay.
So it's not like a taser.
Right.
It's not electrocution.
Okay.
It's a very small current that just stimulates where it's making contact.
Okay.
So if I put on my thumb, you would see my thumb do this, but
Yeah.
everything else is fine because it's stimulating the muscle that then moves the thumb.
Okay.
So for the dog, it's on the neck. You get this.
Yeah.
So if you were to go to a physical therapist and have e-stim done to you, they start low and they say, tell us when it becomes uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and they start to raise it. And then you would say, oh, that's too much, and
Yeah.
then they lower it,
Okay.
and then they let it do its work because it's meant to exercise that muscle.
Okay.
For dogs, it's very similar. We start low and we work our way up.
Sure.
Okay. Temperament, size, breed of dog, personality type, none of that stuff matters. Because
Okay.
people like, especially when their dog is super sweet to the owner,
Yeah.
they're like, oh my god, my dog is so sweet, like their number's gonna be so low. And it
Yeah.
ends up being really high.
Yeah.
Because it just depends on the dog.
Mhm.
I've had big old, 100-something pound Rottweilers be super low because they're just more sensitive.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the dog.
Okay.
We figure all that stuff out through the training, and I coach you through all that stuff.
Okay.
So the way we teach it is what's called pressure work. Are you familiar with pressure at all?
No.
Have you ever pulled up and pushed down to make her sit?
No.
No? So like if you pull up on the leash to pull up on the collar and you push down on the butt,
Yeah.
you'll get a sitting motion.
Right.
Right? So what you're using is physical pressure. So as soon as she caves into physical pressure, you would release it. Because
Okay.
the dog did what you wanted.
Yeah.
So it's very much similar with e-collar.
Okay.
We shape everything using the e-collar.
Yeah.
So most people tend to apply it as a punisher. They teach everything with food, and then they take the dog outside, and they'll say like sit,
Yeah.
and the dog doesn't sit, so then they zap them with the collar, right?
Okay.
So they're punishing the dog for not performing the behavior.
Okay.
Okay, in my opinion, that's the worst way to train because it goes from one extreme of treats and praise and rainbows to the other. So there's no bridge. So what we do is even if the dog's been trained on food, or even I even had dogs trained on e-collar come in here, it
Yeah.
just wasn't done well.
Yeah.
Is we have to reteach everything using the e-collar.
Okay.
Okay, so it would look very much the same. I would pull up, I would press down subtly,
Yeah.
and I would be tapping on the collar.
Okay.
And eventually she would sit down and then
Right.
everything stops. So she goes, oh, when I put my butt down, that feeling I had here disappears. And then she gets up and it kicks in again. She puts her butt back down, it disappears. So then she starts to see it more as a line of communication.
Right.
Okay? So when people think of aversives, they usually think extreme punishment, okay? And especially like when it comes to like aggression or aggressive type behaviors.
Mhm.
I'll see people, I had someone who used to remote their dog in 100 continuous, which is a very harsh correction.
Yeah.
And the dog was a very anxious dog.
Yeah.
So when I came in, I completely stopped all that.
Right.
And I said, we're gonna dip the number down, you're gonna use the NIC function, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
And then within the week, the dog calmed down tremendously because it understood or had concept of why things are happening as opposed to this random, very harsh, painful, punishment.
Right.
So the way we layer it is super important.
Okay.
And the first thing we would do in a case like this is, because you don't have an aggressive dog, you have a nervous dog, okay? What makes a dog aggressive, because that word gets thrown out a lot, in my opinion, is when the dog resorts to aggression on a consistent basis for certain things.
Okay.
So if you told me, Jesse, every time someone comes over, she bites them, I would say, okay, you have, a territorial aggressive dog. Okay, because the dog is biting people entering home because it's being territorial.
Right.
But it's resorting to aggression on a consistent basis.
Right.
Right. Let's say in all these responses that you had told me, instead of barking, she was nipping or trying to bite them.
Yeah.
I would say you have a nervous, aggressive dog.
Okay.
Because she's using aggression on a consistent basis, but it's stemming from nervousness when things suddenly happen.
Right.
Right. And dogs don't do things like humans do. So like a human can plot something and do it. Right? Dogs don't plot.
Okay.
Unless they're stalking something, right?
Right.
Dogs react. So it's like, oh, it's gonna corner grandma. Ah, right? That was a reaction.
Yeah.
Oh, you lifted your leg above the head. Oh, right? That's a reaction.
Yeah.
She wasn't sitting there thinking like, oh yeah, just come around the corner, grandma, I'm gonna jump at you. Right? So, when it comes to a nervous dog, first thing we have to do is just help her settle. Okay? So like right now, she's getting a little anxious. I don't think you have an anxious dog, like, you definitely have a nervous dog.
Yeah.
But like she was pacing for a bit, and then she came up to you, and then you kind of pet her for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then she left, and then she laid down in a very awkward way. I'm not sure how she normally lays down.
No, that's not. She lays down like that sometimes when she's just staring at me, but not if she's actually relaxing.
Yeah, it's more so like she's, I don't want to say bored, but she's needing something to do.
Yeah.
Okay? And you actually do not want to pet her.
Don't pet her? Okay.
So don't pet her. And the other, like when she came up to you earlier, and I'm assuming you're petting to soothe her.
Yeah.
But you're actually rewarding that state of mind.
Okay.
So you're telling her, yes, you should feel uneasy.
Okay.
Yes, you should feel anxious in the setting.
Okay.
Because petting is a reinforcer.
Okay.
So your intention is to console.
Right.
It's okay, we're only here for an hour.
Right.
But the way her brain perceives it is, yes, you should be, or I should be continuing this behavior.
Okay.
Okay, so like when their dogs are lunging and barking, you might see someone pet the dog and say, it's okay,
Don't
sweetie,
do that.
it's okay. It's okay is saying, calm down.
Yeah.
But the petting is saying, keep doing this.
Right.
Because the dogs will understand what's coming out of our mouth, right?
Right.
So little things like that are things that people do that unintentionally create bad behaviors.
Okay.
So I always ignore the dog and push them away because they have to just learn how to deal with it.
Okay.
There's no way to explain it to her.
Yeah.
Like she just has to learn that, in this setting, I just chill out.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would cover in a case like this is leash walking, which is the healing exercise. And we're gonna see what does this fix. Okay. So the reason why we do heal, or the leash walking command is because it fixes like 70 to 80% of problems. And if you watch consultations, 98% of the time, that's the first thing it goes to.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. So if you watch his show, or his old show, or whatever, the first thing he almost always does is he walks the dog.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's not because he says it's exercise, but he's explaining his own method wrong.
Right.
It's actually disciplined exercise.
Okay.
And it's the discipline aspect that he's doing that's actually helping the dog, not the exercise itself.
Okay.
Okay? So here, when we do e-collar heal, it's not the heal or the obedience that's fixing the problem, it's the discipline behind it.
Right.
Okay? It's the contraction, it's the consequence for things.
Yeah.
That's
Like
actually
she's
helping.
learning how that works, and so then we can use it in other scenarios.
Correct.
To know what's going on.
Correct.
Okay.
So once she gets disciplined, like all this uneasiness, that's better. Like here, you see how she's turning around?
Yeah.
If you want to see a visual of this, if you go to my YouTube channel and you look up Rosie,
Okay.
there's 2 videos. Feel free to look at
Yeah, I'm
those.
gonna write it down.
It's a cream retriever. So she looks like a golden retriever, but it's white.
Okay.
But her name's Rosie.
Okay.
She's a really good example. Like literally pick 5 minutes of the consultation,
Yeah.
watch her behavior, very similar to Lucy, is it?
Yes, Lucy.
But more anxious. Like
Yeah.
Lucy has kind of,
Yeah.
right, has anxiety. Hers is much more vocal,
Okay.
and she's all over the place. You just need to see what she looks like, right? And then jump to the first lesson.
Okay.
And then jump to where we start training, and within like 10 to 15 minutes, she's chilling on the ground, relaxed. And it was just through structure.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it helps settle the brain down. So once the brain knows how to settle, all the stuff goes away. See how she's starting to do this here?
Yeah.
This is frustration. Okay, so what you're going to do here is go ahead and grab your leash, and I'm going to have you grab it from underneath her so she's not tangled up. And every time she tries to jump on you, you're going to grab by that second handle there, is you're just going to pull straight up and away from you. Okay, and then you'll literally feel her kind of relax a bit, and when she does, you're going to relax as well.
Okay.
And if she gets uneasy and jumps again, you just simply pull up, wait for her to relax, okay? And this is simply a Band-Aid.
Okay.
For in the meantime, because
right now, yeah.
she's been agitated. So we do the heel, we see what does it fix. Okay, what I expect it to fix is this kind of overstimulation and anxiousness, because she'll be able to actually relax.
Yeah.
What's the word? The like stalking down behavior, we would correct that.
Okay.
And that would end up going away. If there was any kind of leash reactivity, that would ideally go away with the heel.
Okay.
And then, like, let's say in the house, if she seems kind of like agitated or anything, like bored, like frustrated, that stuff will most likely go away as well.
Okay.
The nervous responses to things is something that may dip a bit, but we'll most likely have to address it ourselves in order to help her unlearn that behavior.
Okay.
So it's like if someone smokes a cigarette every day,
Yeah.
right? Every time you smoke that cigarette on a routine basis, you're instilling a habit. So then the cigarette becomes 2 cigarettes, 3 cigarettes, and a pack a day, so on and so forth, right? So then when they have to cut the behavior, some people just slow it down, right? Or some people do cold turkey.
Right.
So for dogs, it's the same thing. Every time something has triggered her and she's barked at it, she's created a habit.
Okay.
Okay, so we have stimulus, response.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is disrupt that pattern. So it's stimulus, response, aversive.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say somebody jumps up, she barks, I tap her on the collar, she stops barking. Okay, is the brain picks up on this pattern. So then over time and repetition, if people get up or whatever, go to the bathroom, come back, the brain will kind of go into that, but then retract because it's thinking aversive is going to happen.
Right.
And then when she learns, oh, nothing happened, then she thinks to herself, oh, I don't have to be like, react like this to this.
Right. Okay.
And I also avoid the correction.
Right.
Okay? And eventually it allows the dog to learn to just be passive with stuff going on. Okay?
Okay.
Now that's the hardest part because with behavioral stuff, the most effective training is organic training. Meaning like, if you try to set it up where you had her in the room and like people are like jumping and all that stuff, it's obviously very set up.
Yeah.
The dog will recognize a setup versus like when friends are just over watching TV or blah, 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 right? Where everybody's relaxed and all of a sudden 15 minutes in somebody gets up to use the bathroom.
Right.
Okay? That's where the real training is. And then you can relax with her. That one's easy because when it comes to stopping behavior, it's simply don't do that.
Right.
That's it. Okay? So aversives are meant to stop things.
Okay.
So like, growing up, I was always old school. If I didn't do my homework, I talked back to my mom, or if I stayed up too late, spank, spank, spank.
Right.
Okay, so one consequence for a number of behaviors. Dogs are similar. If, let's say a dog jumps on a dog, pounds a dog, or barks at a dog, bite, bite, bite. Don't do that to me, right? One type of aversive to stop a number of behaviors. So here, when it comes to her barking when someone gets up, I don't care what she does, I just don't want her to bark.
Right.
Right, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas most trainers tend to go by, like you said earlier, like if she could be off in the corner somewhere and mind her business, like I would be fine with that. And it's an answer. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Right.
It's an answer to your thought. There you go. So go ahead and just pull in a little bit. Now up on your leash. And then you can relax now. And then just pull in a little bit. Pull, pull, pull. There you go, then relax. Good. See what she does. So, yeah. So like, let's say barking out the window. And you said, I call her and she like sits next to me or something?
Yeah, she like will go sit in her dog bed.
Sure. So right there, we're not up. And then relax. You're not actually stopping the behavior, you're redirecting her. So that's why the behavior continues to happen. So for her, she thinks I bark out the window, you call me, she comes, you told her to go to the bed, she does so.
Yeah.
But nothing said, don't bark out the window.
Okay.
Okay, so the way I go about it is, dog barks at the window, I just correct it.
Right.
And they go, I don't care what you do, but don't bark out the window.
Right.
Okay? Oh. There you go. Almost. Good. Good. So, corrective behavior is much simpler. Humans make it complicated because they add in extra steps.
Okay.
Okay. So, when it goes to the dog bed thing, so we have her learning how to coexist with people
Right.
and not triggering, and then her coexisting with people because she's under control. Right? So, like, let's say she is on a dog bed, and you have guests and they're moving up and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's so focused or whatever on the task at hand that it doesn't allow her to learn to actually be around people and not trigger.
Okay.
In order for her to learn that, it would be she's in the room under no command,
Yeah.
and if somebody does something, we would correct it, right? And again, there's no right or wrong.
Okay.
I do teach both because it's nice to have options.
Right.
Because earlier when you mentioned like I want to like not have to worry about her,
Yeah.
is if I go to a restaurant and I want to just eat my meal, I have my dog under control.
Yeah.
Because I want to deal with the dog.
Right.
I want to just enjoy my meal.
Right.
Right? Or if I'm at my friend's house and I have my dog with me, well, I don't care what my dog does
Right.
because I'm at my friend's house.
Right.
That I can have my dog being loose.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the difference, is we have obedience and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So then we just kind of go over what's going to be more effective for you.
Okay.
And then you decide within the moment, like, okay,
Which
in this
one do I
case,
want
I'm
to
gonna use
do?
this or I'm gonna do this,
Okay.
okay? Because in order for her to learn to get over that stuff, she has to technically be allowed to do it.
Right. Because she needs to be
Oh,
corrected.
that's Luna, she's leaving. She gets really worked up when she leaves.
I'll
So,
give her something to focus on. So.
yeah, that's fun, yeah. You can always hear when she's leaving and coming in. So for that, again, no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever word you're gonna choose. So 2 classes on the heel, maybe a class or 2 on just behavior, correcting things, and understanding nervous dog.
Yeah.
Because everything you told me makes complete sense. Okay. And
So you don't really, I guess like I had someone tell me once that like the way that she was reactive, I would never know essentially.
No, that's because they don't know how to read dog behavior. So I know because, so actually, I have a video on my Instagram. So I have 2 Instagrams. I have Canine Perspective, then I have the Chicago Dog Whisperer.
Okay.
And that one, I make videos where I'm just talking about dog behavior.
Okay.
That's all it's focused on. And I have one video titled The Difference Between Insecure, Fearful, and Anxious Dogs.
Okay.
And if you watch that video, you'll hear me say all the exact stuff that you're saying about her dog.
Yeah.
Being a nervous dog, you're like, oh yeah, Jesse just said it right there.
Right.
So when I come in, if someone says I have a nervous dog, I can predict a ton of things.
Right.
Because nervous personalities are all the same.
Right.
Anxious personalities are all the same. There might be some nuances here and there.
Sure.
But a chunk of the behavior, like the one thing with nervous dogs is they trigger it at surprises.
Okay.
Okay? So like again, turning the corner and seeing your animal, that was a surprise. That is super typical nervous response.
Yeah.
Right? So knowing that and educating on that, you can predict things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like, let's say you're hanging out with your friends and all of a sudden someone goes, hey, I have to go pee.
Yeah.
You know they're gonna get up next. So the next thing I do is boom, I look at Lucy. I have my remote ready because I'm gonna expect something, right? So
Yeah.
I can be a step ahead of her.
Right.
If you don't understand dog behavior, it seemingly comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay? I just posted a video on Instagram today of a woman that got bit in the face. And it's the video footage of her getting bit in the face. And there's this guy feeding his Akita hot dogs or something.
Yeah.
And right there, when she goes to hug him, I'm thinking resource guarding.
Right.
Immediately. Sure enough, he snaps at her hand.
Yeah.
And then she put her face in near his face, and then he bit her in the face. All that stuff, I saw it just before it was about to happen.
Right. Right.
Because I know dogs so well. I'm like, she's gonna go in his personal space, he's next to food, he's gonna guard it, he's gonna snap at it, right?
Yeah.
But humans, because they think dogs are friendly, happy-go-lucky creatures who aren't aggressive, and if they're aggressive, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, they're unassuming, and then that puts them in bad positions.
Yeah.
So if you had how to say, a dangerous dog, I tell you.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if it makes you uneasy, like let's say, you know, we want to socialize her and get her to overcome the nervousness, but that makes you uneasy for whatever reason, because you're like, well, Jesse, what if something happens?
Yeah.
Then I would say muzzle condition your dog.
Right.
Because the muzzle then alleviates,
That-
any chance of her
Yeah.
actually biting someone.
Right.
Unless the finger happens to go to the muzzle,
Right, which is.
exactly, the chance of that happening are low.
Yeah.
Then we muzzle condition, okay? The dog that I'm gonna see right after you is absolutely on muzzle. And I told him whenever this dog goes outside, it's on a muzzle.
Yeah.
Like this, like forcing the dog bit the owner in the head,
Yeah.
And they only had him for like 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, so you see how quick that was
Right.
for them? So in your case, you've had her for a year. And like you said, if she had the opportunity, it's just not that she has not had the opportunity to, it's just that she just hasn't felt the need to
Right.
actually do that. Otherwise you would have been telling me about that stuff.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not really worried about that. Once we get that under control, then everything else is, how to say, the length of time it costs is dictated by how much you want to get done
Okay.
and how much control you want.
Okay.
Once you understand the concepts, it's really straightforward. The reason why my programs are so short are because I'm educating you to understand your dog better.
Right.
Give you a tool that allows you to communicate with your dog on the level that you can right now.
Right.
And then essentially prepare you for life with your dog. So that this way, you're not here for months trying to fix something,
Mhm.
okay? So after those, essentially about 4 classes,
Okay.
we can assess like where she at. So I have a 6, 9, and 12 week program, okay? And the way I go with things is I look at what your needs, your wants, and then I think maybe the dog needs,
Uh-huh.
and I can give you an idea. So there was that, the separation anxiety. If that's going to be a class, it's a single class.
Okay.
Worst case scenario would be she'd need a bark collar.
Okay.
Okay, bark collar will correct her from barking automatically.
Yeah.
And what you'll see is that you'll put the bark collar on her and it'll just keep her chill.
Yeah.
Because she can't go to that degree because she knows the collar will keep her in check.
Okay.
Whether or not she gets past the collar is up in the air, good, because it happens when you're away.
Yeah.
Right, that's the hardest thing about separation anxiety is that it happens when you're gone.
Right.
Okay, and I've had some pretty intense separation, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
with a dog chewing off cell stuff, some pretty extreme separation anxiety cases.
Yeah.
And the collar just helps them chill
Okay.
because that was sort of consequence.
Yeah.
Right? So it helps keep the dog relaxed. And then when
Yeah,
you
I
come,
feel like I would want to try that with her just because I do feel like she gets very anxious when I leave. 'Cause
Sure.
I know she runs back and forth between the house too, looking for me essentially.
sure, yeah, because she's her stress levels are going up.
Right.
Okay. So, but what happens with e-collar is that when she feels it and she barks the first time and it corrects her, now she's going to be aware oh, this thing, I get corrected even when mom's gone.
Yeah.
And that's what helps dogs just kind of keep passive. Okay.
Have
So
you
that,
had instances where dogs get even more riled up by that?
yes, but they have to, essentially the collar has to do its work to shut it down. People tend to panic.
Yeah.
And then they stop and they remove it, and I'm like, no, let the dog work through it. Now, I wouldn't say go get a bark collar and put it on her now. What I would tell you is after your first class, give it a week and then add in the bark collar.
Okay.
Because the training that we do, again, teaches her how it turns on, how it turns off.
Yeah.
So by the time you use the bark collar, it's
She'll
almost
know
the same
how that
thing.
works. Yeah.
Exactly. She'll have a concept as opposed to what the hell is this?
Right.
Because that's what freaks out dog is the what's the hell is this part.
Right.
So, so that separation anxiety class in itself, I actually have a number of cases of separation anxiety just because of COVID.
Right.
And there's a number of ways of working about it. Some clients want to try to work past the bar collar, so I give them exercises to do.
Mm-hmm.
But whether or not they actually get past it is just depending on the dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the again, it's just difficult just because it happens when they're gone.
Right.
So that would be, like 5-ish classes, because it was and the socializing the dog is a class in itself.
Okay.
So if you're really wanting to target the behavior,
Yeah.
2 classes on heel has to happen
Yeah.
for everything else to work. Okay. Once we get that down, we can progress however you like. We can
Okay.
either do the socialization, we can do the separation anxiety, or we can do the correcting her barking indoors or whatever, or any other behaviors that you want to stop. You should be able to get that within 6 classes. Okay. The 9 and 12 week programs will allow us up. And then relax a bit. So here, because she's getting anxious, up. And what I'm going to have you do is with your left hand pull here. Yeah, left side. Pull, 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 pull. Yeah, pull, pull, pull. There you go. Now up again. There you go, and then relax. Right there. Okay. Is that she gets anxious, getting uneasy, she's getting frustrated. Okay. Up. Yep.
Do the same thing with the.
Yeah. So what you're doing here is just being more in there, right there. You can relax. Yeah. I'm more so just pocketing her in there.
Yeah.
Just what you're doing is just giving direction, and you're saying, don't do that, do this.
Right.
Okay. So she's just getting so that's like, you know, we've been here like 45 minutes ish, and she's getting frustrated, and that's why that escalates. Okay. So then if left unaddressed, it just continues to happen. So right there, I was like, you're just disrupting her and saying, like, cut that crap, get over here, and just chill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So so 6 classes, pretty confident we can get that stuff done. Okay. If you're wanting more control in terms of obedience control, then we have 9 to 12 week classes, okay, or 12 week program. So if you did the 9 week program, most likely you want to cover some kind of stationary command, like go to your bed and not move. That would give you an option. Option, right? Recall is another. Yep. That's good. Is another thing that that I think is like one of the most important things that a dog can learn.
Yeah.
Is come back on the call. Okay. Yep. And then relax. Good. And the 12-week program is we cover all the commands. Okay? We try to get as close to, let me have you try this. Grab the leash with your right hand as a handle, pull up, and then with your left hand push down on the butt. Then relax. Okay, I'm gonna have you keep the leash like that and then you breathe out. And now relax. Good. With the 12-week program, we're covering more commands. Okay? So if your dog didn't have any behavior issues, the way the programs work out is the 6 week is like I walk my dog and I go to the dog park, so I want my dog to come back. The 9 week is walk my dog, go to the dog park, go to restaurants. And then the 12 week is I do all that stuff, plus I hike with my dog and go to the dog beach. And my dog is off leash in those areas, right? So the longer the program, the more control you have.
Yeah.
Now, obviously here we're worried about behavior.
Right.
So I'm just modifying the program, you know, to tailor it to your needs. So if you did the 12 week, because we have the behavior stuff, we're not going to get a fully off-leash trainer. I don't think, right?
Right.
And then if you decide to up, and then relax, good. And down the butt. There you go, and then relax. Up, down the butt. There you go, and relax. We see how far we get at the 12 classes. And then you decide like, oh, Jesse, like this is amazing. I would like to get her fully trained. How many classes do you think? I say 2 more.
Okay.
If you say like,
so that's the 12, it would be like, okay, this is great, and how many more? Or
correct. Yeah. So I never sell people on like longer programs. Yep. And then there you go. Because typically when we do 12, I get a ton done.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as the others doing the homework, I get a lot done. And if you were to decide like I would like to do more, you would like.
Then
I would say like this is what's left. And I say 2 classes, 3 classes, whatever.
Okay.
If you do 6, I'm doing bare bones the stuff I know you need.
Okay.
We need to heal. We need to know how to stop the separation anxiety, the barking, whatever, the window, the activity stuff, the socialization, right? Which is like 5-ish classes. The 6th one, it could be a review or whatever, like, you know, something else. So that's like the bare minimum.
Okay.
And then it's like, well, if you want to learn more, if you want more control over your dog, then we have the 9 and 12 programs.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
What you decide to do does not matter to me.
Right.
Okay? And there's some cases, like for instance, the one I'm gonna see after you, where it's like you are absolutely doing 12 classes because your dog is dead.
Yeah.
Okay? And then we see where we're at in the 12 classes.
Okay.
Your case, it's behavior, but it's what I would call minor behavior.
Okay.
Okay? Because she's not, you know, she's a nervous dog.
Right.
And it's just educating you on how we handle a nervous dog.
Okay.
Questions about any of this stuff so far?
Not really. I think I'm honestly leaning more towards like the 9 or 12 week program because I would be able to you know, go after a restaurant and not worry about her. Even like taking her on a hike or something, that would be great.
So then Maria will get all that stuff, go over all that stuff with you.
Okay.
How much does she weigh?
50 pounds.
50?
Yeah.
You technically have 2 options. There's the dog toy, and Maria will send you this info, the 2300 or the 1900 S Black Edition.
Okay.
One is meant for 70 pounds and under, one is meant for 70 pounds and over.
Okay.
The only reason why I suggest the other one is with the higher power, it's lower output, like it's lower levels. So instead of being on 60, if we're at 60, it'd be like 40,
Right.
you know, because the output is greater.
Okay.
But for the smaller dogs, the 2300 is a big old box. So if you don't care about aesthetic, then that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Otherwise, the other one, the 1900S Black Edition, is rounded, so it's just more aesthetically pleasing for the owner. But otherwise, I think you're fine with either one of them.
Okay.
That's just personal preference. One runs, I believe, is 27-ish with tax, and the higher power clogs like 25-ish tax.
Okay.
They last a really long time. They last for years. They have them for 8 years, no issues.
Okay.
Most common thing is that the battery does die because it's a rechargeable lithium battery.
Okay, so you just charge it up.
Yeah, you know, so then after a few years that battery gives out, you just go to the Valtra, you purchase a new battery, you replace it, 15, 20 bucks, and good to go. Sure.
Okay.
In terms of,
And Maria will send me over.
yeah, she'll send you all the information, she'll send you the pricing, everything like that.
Okay.
And then, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If actually you want to see a case like hers, Cashew.
Cashew?
Yeah, and Cashew is actually a super human nervous reactive dog.
Okay.
And she's doing great.
Okay.
You know, I haven't, her consultation was up, but I have to edit it. But I'm gonna edit it and get it back up again. So if you end up looking at Cashew and you see her consultation up, watch the consultation, and it'll give you an idea of just like the different types of nervousness.
Yeah.
But hers is much more escalated than what we're dealing with here.
Sure.
And then you see her class 1, it's, you know, 90 day.
Good deal. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not expecting anything, not to say that it can't happen in terms of like, how would you say, like, when we put a dog under pressure, that's when we see like the real dog.
Right.
Because we're putting them under stress.
Right.
But we have to work them through it in order for them to learn how to handle stress. So I can only take as far as willing to go.
Right.
So if they give you the homework, you know, do the homework, obviously we're not going to make progress.
Right.
Most common thing, or common question that I get asked is when does the e-collar go away? And in my opinion, when you need it, it doesn't, okay? Not because the training isn't effective, not because of my skills as a trainer, it's just opportunistic behavior.
Right.
So like humans on the expressway tend to speed, but when they see a squad car, everybody goes the speed limit. That's opportunistic behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like to think of the e-collar as a top on collar. When it's present, she's going to be able to just contain herself much better.
Right. She can. Yeah.
Exactly. And then when it's off, she's going to be a brat. So it just means when you're out walking her and stuff, you have it on. If you're having guests over, you might have it on like the first 15 minutes, and then when she settles, you can take it off.
Sure.
Or it might be on the whole time, but she's just chill, you know. And then when everybody leaves, you just take it off.
Okay.
So it just either helps dogs just chill out, or it just gives you the control that you need to feel confident that if something happens, you can address it.
Sure.
And of course, obviously, like here you have your leash, so we're having to do this with the e-collar. Just press a button. So other than that, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Maria will get in contact with you. She'll break down the pricing and everything, and then send you the make and models that we suggest, that I suggested today.
Yeah.
And then you pick and choose which one you want.
So did you, sorry, I just remind me, did you recommend the 70 the 70 pound and over one, or the?
You're fine with either or, I believe, because her leash reactivity isn't like her lunging and barking, is that correct? Like towards dogs and stuff?
No, not really. She does like the little down and then she'll pop up. And sometimes she barks, but not all the time.
Yeah, I think you're fine with either or. It's just the lower powered one is a big square box, whereas the higher powered one is a curved box.
Okay.
So for smaller dogs, it doesn't look like this big old clunking thing.
Yeah.
So it's really just up to you. When you get your models, you can do your research on them, everything. And then, you know, when you do order it, read your manual, test it, make sure it's working normally. I will send you videos to watch prior to training. Set it this way. When you come to train, like they teach you how to set it up. Yeah, so we can just start training.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, how much time do you think, like you talk about working on, like doing homework, right? Like how many, is that just kind of?
As you live your life with your dog.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so like, there's like, let's say you want to get her to be off-leash reliable. Well, that requires you to go to a park and all that stuff, right? So that's going to take more time.
Right.
So I give you everything that you need to train your dog to that degree.
Yeah.
Don't expect at the end of 12 weeks, you're just going to walk out with a fully trained dog.
Right.
You're going to have all the tools. Your dog's going to be way further than where she is now.
Right.
But you might have like another month or two of practicing before you get to that point. Okay.
But it's not like I need to like, you know, do some exercise with her like 5 times a day, every day. It's like, oh, someone's over, like we're gonna, you know, practice not reacting when they get up, or oh, we're on a walk, we're gonna practice.
Well, that would be like, you do that as it happens,
Right,
right?
but that's what I mean, like, it's like, oh, like, you know, my buddy's coming over, like, and now, you know, we're gonna work with her on not reacting when she does whatever.
Correct, and then you would just literally hang out with your friend.
Right.
And just have your call already.
Okay.
You know, yeah, I try to tell people to do it as organically as possible.
Yeah.
Because that's the real training.
Right.
As opposed to, you know, setups are good because
Yeah.
it's controlled.
Right.
It allows you to learn what to do.
Right.
But then after that, it's like, okay, cool, we got the foundation down. Now it's just going to be like organic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just as you live your life with your dog.
Okay.
Obviously, if you push things and like are having guests over, come over every day, blah blah blah, you're gonna make a very quick progress.
Right.
If you're having a guest come over once a month, you'll make
Not
progress, but obviously it's gonna be over a period of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it for now.
All right. I'll help you out because that dog, he's coming soon,
Okay.
and he can be a little prick sometimes.
Okay.